where you report test status based on a collection of charts that balance each other out. And that will probably be the topic of a future webinar of how to create a balanced testing scorecard, or at least give some examples of that, because that's clearly something that we think a lot of clients could use some help with. Okay, so I'm happy to turn it over for questions at this point. You've seen some of my favorite surprises, and I'd be happy to not just have questions, but any favorite surprises that you've had when you were working on a test team. And of course, if you're interested in more information about an assessment, including a quote, you can send us an email at info@rbcs-us.com. I'll put the advertisement up here as we go into the Q&A session. Let's see. So one of the questions is, Rex, this is via email. You often say that you should manage with data, and that's true. I've said that on many occasions. I think I said that here. However, what if the data you have is dirty in the sense that it contains information you know is bad? Can we still use it? Which is a great question. And the answer is, well, it depends on how bad it is and what exactly you're trying to do with it. So let's look at an example here. Now, let's say you're dealing with bug data, and you know that people who have been filing bug reports have chosen the priority value, and you file a bug report that has asked for severity and priority. And then people just have selected the priority value at random, or they always choose the first item on the pull-down list because they never had any guidance on how to classify bug priorities. Well, in a situation like that, obviously, there is not a whole lot of value in trying to analyze that information. You're not going to get a lot of useful information out of that. And in fact, in such a situation, if you did try to analyze it, you'd actually get misinformation, misdirection. You'd be you pointed in the wrong direction with that data. Now, suppose though you're looking at analyzing the bug closure period, which is the time from discovery of a bug to its ultimate resolution. And suppose most of the testers enter bug reports on the same day they find them, and that most of the testers perform the confirmation test the same day they receive the bug fixes in a build. So, if just a few bug reports are filed a day or two late, and some bug fixes are not retested until 2 or 3 days later, you still use the closure period metric. It's still going to be a meaningful metric. The only question is, is it clean enough, basically, clean enough for what you're going to try to do with it? And I think that's a good question to ask, because certainly you don't want to use data where data is going to point you in the wrong direction. Okay, so we have a question here from Samaya. Can you please elaborate more on specific circumstances where blending works out to be counterproductive? Okay, that is a good question, because I said that sometimes you want to blend, most of the time you want to blend, and but sometimes you don't. So let's see. Well, let me go back to the example that I gave, where I said that we had recently done a project where it was purely exploratory testing. So this case, what we were doing was an acceptance test on a website. And we had a legacy system, because the website was being built to be a clone of an existing system, and it was basically to work like the existing system, except when it wasn't. And that was pretty well specified as to what the few minor changes were. So we had a legacy system. So we had a reliable test oracle that we could refer to. We had a very experienced tester who, in fact, had been involved in testing the legacy system, the legacy website. that. So he already knew what this thing was to do from previous testing. And we also were, reasonably confident that we could do this, without a whole lot of upfront analysis. That the point of the website and its capabilities and features and risks and so forth would be immediately obvious to this tester, who was very experienced. And he was able to test successfully, and we were pleased with the results of that. So I think that was a case where, a blended strategy where if we spend a lot of time on doing a risk analysis and a lot of time trying to put automation in place and so forth, that would have been a disaster. That would have been a waste of time, because there was nothing in there to indicate that the purely reactive approach by itself would not work. Now, that said, I think that is an outlier. I think that is an unusual situation, that more often than not, a blended approach is something that you want to have. And so, I gave the example of trying to use purely automated approach as a disaster, using myself as my own example of failure there, if you will. Trying to automate all of those compatibility tests for the database query tool, focusing on that, and missing out on other important quality risks. Now, if we used a blended approach there, where we'd had some sort of risk analysis and tried to figure out, okay, what are the important areas of this product, and which of those tests can be covered with automated tests, which of those tests need to be covered with manual tests, and then we'd done that, and then we'd thrown into the balance also some reactive testing to try to balance that out, I think that would have been quite effective there. So, that was a case where failing to blend was a problem. So blended is better most of the time, and it's up to you to figure out whether, well, for one thing, what blend of what strategies, and for another thing, is this one of those unusual cases where actually a single test strategy is the right thing to go. Now we have a question from my buddy Lee Copeland. Lee, how are you? And by the way, it was Deming, not Box, who said that all models are wrong and some are useful. Anyway, if those of you who know Lee and I know that that's sort of a long-running joke between us. Anyway, Lee asks, I recently saw a movie called A Day Without a Mexican, which I have seen too, and which is absolutely a great movie, in which all people of Hispanic descent simply vanish in one day. And as I remember, Lee, the entire state of California, or at least Southern California, it comes to a screeching halt when that occurs. It's equivalent to your idea of a release without testing. I've been promoting it for years, but with no takers. Glad you're promoting it too. I wonder why no one listens to us. Yeah, that's a good point, Lee. I mean, I was being somewhat facetious in my comment about, just try shipping an untested product sometime and see what happens. But I mean, it really would be sort of the ultimate test, and I think that in a lot of organizations, they actually, if they were dared to do it, they would back down. I don't think as Lee says, wonder why no one listens, or why we don't have any takers. Well, because I think that ultimately, when you dare people to take that risk, they sort of start staring into the abyss and say, ooh, that's bad. But still, we need to have more to offer, I think, than just fear, uncertainty, and doubt, too. Though that's certainly part of the sales pitch for testing as it goes, is